Hi, welcome back to the Deciding Factor podcast. It's been a while, but I'm John.
And I'm Alton.
And intern Barb's here with us again. How are you doing, Barb?
Good. Hi, guys.
So I got a question for you both. Hypnotism. What first jumps into your head when you think about hypnotism?
Sorry. I think of the stage shows. I think of Vegas.
Yes. The same pops in my head, and honestly, I kind of have some skepticism when it comes to it. So this show will be interesting because we're going to speak to a hypnotist himself, Doug Sands, and he's going to walk us through how it actually might help you with your anxiety. So that's the question for today. And of course, Alton has a little tidbit of today's show and something you might need.
It's true because we're recording this intro after our show, and Doug tells us about a hypnotist who actually convinced someone to shoot somebody. Incredible. And he also said that he can help me grow my trap size. So looking forward to that.
Guys, do us a favor. During the show, we actually talk about a way we can research this further. So you're going to want to stay tuned to our social media, our YouTube channel. You're going to want to see us attempt this on one of the three of us. So make sure you stay tuned to the Deciding Factor, as well as make sure you comment, because without your comments, we can't give you what you like. So send us a message and we will see you on the Deciding Factor.
Everyday life issues broken down to help you build your own opinions on the issues that matter most. Coming to you from Austin, Texas, this is The Deciding Factor with your host, Alton Hill and John Herzog.
All right, guys, welcome back to The Deciding Factor. So like we said in the intro, we've got our special guest here, Doug Sands, who is a hypnotist himself. So Barb, can you tell us a little something about him?
Doug Sands is a consulting hypnotist. He helps adventurous people all over the world overcome mental struggles using hypnosis. Doug is also the host of Making Meaning podcast, a show that interviews top adventurers to learn how they've built their ideal life to inspire listeners to start building their own. Doug, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Man, so right away, I'm going to give you some crap here. So every time I think about hypnotists, I automatically think about the people that make people say the chicken sound. That's all that comes to my mind. So is that what you do, or is it a lot more professional?
It's a lot more professional. And I get that a lot. There's so many misconceptions about hypnosis, but I also thought that hypnosis was just like a stage show gimmick until I experienced it. And then I realized that there's more like an actual science to it. Like your brainwaves are doing funky things, and there's like 125 years of research behind it. When I realized that, it was something that I actually wanted to explore, and now it's what I do full time.
Wow.
Okay, so can you make him squawk like a chicken? I'm just saying, like, is it an option? Not that it's the main thing you do, but
it is. Yeah, it's an option.
All right, people, stay tuned to the end.
No.
Oh, he's panicking already. So if you don't mind, Doug, tell me a little bit about how you got into this.
Yeah, I never thought I was going to be a hypnotist when I started my life. Thought I was going to be a fiction writer. And through many turns in life, I ended up on a hike where I nearly froze to death. And coming out of that hike, I realized I couldn't keep dealing with my life the way I was dealing with it. I was dealing with mental health, like depression and anxiety. And I was just kind of waiting for something to fix me, like meds or therapy. And I started grasping for things to fix myself. And that was the first time I started really playing that active role. And I discovered meditation. And meditation is really interesting because it's got links to hypnosis. And that's how I got into hypnosis, by studying the science behind it and realizing there's actually the connection there, and that our brains, it's actually benefiting from doing this.
Wow. So our topic today is, can hypnosis really be the cure for anxiety? So walk us through. Tell us from A to B how this really works, and exactly can it work?
Absolutely.
Actually, do you mind defining
Yeah.
what it is too? Like, how would you define hypnosis as part of John's question?
Yeah.
I want to make sure I
Yeah,
understand.
that's probably a good place to start. Hypnosis, as I define it, is a trance state that we are producing ourselves for greater change. So people think hypnosis is something a hypnotist does, like they wave their magic fingers and someone goes into trance. But people are doing hypnosis all the time on themselves without realizing it. We just don't call it that. Whether it's getting lost in a really good book or movie, or like zoning out, staring out a window, or getting lost, zoning out on the highway. That's, they call it highway hypnosis for a reason. You're actively zoning out with your conscious mind, but your unconscious mind is still driving that car. You don't plow into a wall and kill yourself doing that. And so hypnosis, the way I define it, the way I use it, is simply using someone's natural trance abilities to get them to a theta frequency brainwave state that we then can make change happen for them.
Wow. So then walk us through how does this work for anxiety though? And do they stay in this hypnosis for 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 years?
So a hypnosis session for anxiety, when someone comes in, the first step I work with is breaking down those misconceptions about hypnosis. Everyone always asks, is hypnosis mind control? And then they always ask, what happens if I get stuck in hypnosis? And a couple other misconceptions. So we break those down. And then we establish what actually is hypnosis. And then we go into the actual session. The actual hypnosis can last anywhere from like 20 minutes to about an hour. I average my sessions around an hour and a half. And so so what happens in the actual session? I'm using language patterns and different tools called inductions to get a person to slow down their brainwave patterns. And that's kind of where it ties into meditation. In solo meditation, your brainwave is speeding up, but in guided meditation, that's that weird middle area between hypnosis and meditation. Because both in guided meditation and in hypnosis, your brainwaves are slowing down and you're aiming for a spot that's right above sleep. We call it theta frequency. And that's kind of why it looks like people are asleep in hypnosis, but they're awake and aware the entire time. They just can't really be bothered to do anything about it. So when we get people to that theta state, what's so powerful about hypnosis is that the critical faculty, that critical part of your mind that blocks out suggestions that might help you, it's a little more permissible about things that could help you. Now, when I say someone is suggestible, they're only suggestible to beneficial suggestions. If I give them a suggestion in hypnosis that they're going to go rob a bank, and that's not in their moral code, they're not going to go do it. Most of the time, it's going to wake them up out of trance because it's broken that trust. And so that kind of deals with that mind control thing, that argument. So when we're using this for anxiety, what I'm doing is typically getting people down to that theta frequency and then giving them beneficial suggestions. That's the most common way of helping people to overcome things, especially like anxiety. If we want to go a little bit deeper into it and go into the root cause of that anxiety, we can actually go in and work with these memories. Now, even out of hypnosis, we're changing our memories daily. And every single time we access a memory, we're literally changing it at the protein level. I think it's kinase C that changes. We do that intentionally in hypnosis. What I like to say, what differentiates hypnosis and therapy is that in therapy, you have to take the emotional baggage and open it up and look at everything. But in hypnosis, you just take that memory, like the negative emotions of it, and you just get rid of it. You just take that emotional baggage and chuck it out the window, essentially. And then we bring the person back out of the hypnosis, making sure that the changes are installed. And they usually come out of it a little bit fuzzy for like 5 minutes, and then I send them on their way.
So if you were to do hypnosis to me, would I actually be aware of what you're doing when you're doing it? Or is it kind of like I am in la la land? Not really.
You would be aware of it for the most part. I'd say about 80% of my clients, they come out and they're like, I heard everything you said. I was aware the entire time. I liken it to this. If you've ever laid in bed after the alarm and just snoozed, like you were aware things were going on around you. And if something happened, you could wake up and deal with it, but you were kind of just drifting. Now, for that other 20%, there are people who have what's called spontaneous amnesia. They forget what happened in hypnosis. Those are people who go really deep into hypnosis. And for most people, they are aware the entire time.
Huh. So I guess the only downside is obviously you do a lot of your stuff online. So if internet breaks, then someone's probably stuck there screwed.
I get that question as well. But you're right. I do most of my stuff online. I work with people all around the world, and I get around that by pre-framing. Like if anything happens, if the connection is lost, you're just going to tend to your breathing and eventually come out of hypnosis. And that brings up the question: can you get stuck in hypnosis? And it's physically not possible, because you're working with that part of your mind that wants to protect you. It's your unconscious. It comes from that fight, flight, or freeze response. Eventually, you're going to have to get up to go use the bathroom, or to get food, or to go to sleep or something. Like it's physically impossible to stay in hypnosis forever. I think the longest I've seen it, like without a hypnotist giving suggestion, was about 10 minutes. And then someone was like, what's been going on? Where have you been all this time?
Weird.
So yeah, I had a friend in high school that a hypnotist came to the high school, and I don't know why he was there, but anyway, but he volunteered, he got hypnotized, and he was up there. Like, he showed me a picture in the yearbook of him getting hypnotized, and basically the guy had him up on stage just dancing, and I think he was like singing Taylor Swift or something like that.
What?
So I
Wait,
mean,
it should have been Elvis for your time frame, right?
Well, anyway, so where is that border? Like you mentioned, a moral code, and I guess what I'm getting at is, where can you draw the line? Can you, like, if let's say that John had a cigarette smoking problem, but he doesn't want to quit, is hypnotism going to help, or could you still break in there? What exactly can you influence with hypnotism, and what can't you, I guess is what I'm really trying to say.
Absolutely. It brings up the idea of threshold. That's a really important thing, both with our idea concept, with therapy, and with hypnosis. It's the idea that someone can congruently say three things. One, something needs to change. Two, it has to be me that makes that change. And three, that change has to happen right now. And one of the biggest things I'm looking for when I have that initial consultation with a person coming in for anxiety or weight loss or smoking, whatever it is are they at threshold? Are they ready to make that change? It's the same idea why someone who has had a life-threatening car accident can change everything in 180 degrees in a moment's notice, because they were ready to make that change. Now, if someone comes in to work with me to stop smoking, and they're like, well, my wife wants me to do this, and it might be nice, but I really enjoy this, they're not going to make the change because they're not committed to it. And talking about, you mentioned stage hypnosis, the idea of getting someone to do something that controlling them, it's an alluring idea, but it's not real. Having been on both sides of that stage hypnosis conversation, both the hypnotist and the subject, I think that in a stage show, what you're essentially doing is lowering a person's resistance or inhibitions. I guess same thing with alcohol, but you are giving them that free space to have that fun. You never see a stage hypnotist telling people to go rob a bank and give you the money for it.
Yeah.
You see people giving the suggestions.
You don't see it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Just saying.
No, I mean, that's kind of like a question that I have. Doug seems like a nice guy, but what if I wanted to learn these techniques and be like, use them in a bad way?
I would say that you're working with a person's mind. They're alert and aware the entire time. If that person doesn't trust you, first and foremost, they're not going to go into trance. If that person disagrees with something you said in the middle of it, they're going to come out of trance. If you attempt to violate that agreement, that unspoken contract at any time, it's not going to work.
So can I ask a follow-up with that though? Because I'm assuming that this is not totally unlike finding any other sort of therapist, and that you do have to find the person that you most align with, that you can trust, right? Because it seems like this is it's a lot of confidence to put in one person. I mean, you're describing a really vulnerable state to be in, right?
Absolutely.
So how do you, for one, how do you pick a hypnotist to work with when you're in this vulnerable state? I mean, it doesn't work unless you are suggestible, basically, right? Like you have to be willing to be changed. So if I am in that state where I'm like, I need to drop 2,000 pounds and I am willing to do whatever you say to do it. Couldn't you, in theory, be feeding me incorrect information, but I'm totally willing to do it because I don't know any better? How do you protect yourself amidst that kind of vulnerability? How do you choose the right person?
Yeah, a lot of questions there. I'll break them down one by
one.
The first one, you mentioned that connection between therapists, and we call that rapport. And that is extremely important, even more so important than with personally, I believe, than with a therapist. Because as you said, it's a vulnerable position. You are essentially going into a room with a person. For me, I do it over Zoom, but you are meeting someone for like 20 minutes, and then you are expected to close your eyes and allow them to tamper with your brain, like as we believe it in our society. And the way that I recommend people find a good hypnotist is to look for their work online, especially like videos or podcasts or things where you can get a sense of their personality before you actually come into work with them. Unfortunately, unlike doctors and nurses, there's no central government board of hypnotists yet, because there just aren't enough of us out there. And so there are a lot of private organizations that slap up a fancy label like certified hypnotist and professional guild or something like, yeah, that's nice. But for some of these, all you have to do to qualify is pay a monthly fee. And so what I would recommend for anyone looking for a hypnotist, find their work online. Number one, do you trust their website? Does it look professional? Number two, can you find them on places other than their website, talking about actual professional things rather than just hyping up hypnosis? Number three, do you actually feel that connection? Like if you met this person in a bar or in a park or something, would you trust them? Like that's so critical. And finally, the last question that you're talking about, the idea of getting someone who believes in you so passionately to do something they don't want to do. Hypnosis in its base form can be used for that. I believe it was Darren Brown did a informal study of seeing if he could hypnotize someone to shoot another person. And in the short story, he did. He was able to convince someone to shoot another person. But to do that, he had to set up so many different layers of morals and codes and establish trust with this person's unconscious, so that when the person pulled the trigger of that, not actually loaded gun, they believed they were doing the right thing. They believed they were either killing a terrorist or saving their family or doing something like that.
You switched it there on us. I thought he really killed somebody, but you said it was an empty gun. It's like, oh.
But it's like the Manchurian
Instagram right there.
Yeah, it's the Manchurian candidate
seconds.
concept, right? Like that you could be trained to the point where it's not like you're going against your moral code. You think it's right.
But that's like, we've all watched a movie where the bad guy convinced some innocent, unsuspecting person to do something terrible, right?
Exactly.
Like without hypnosis.
I was just going to say, you could do this without hypnosis. Like it's just, hypnosis is a convincing tool, but if you don't have that trust with the person, if they don't believe you at some point along the journey, it's not going to work.
Okay, so I have another question here. We're talking about one of the thoughts that came into my mind. You'll hear how fast I'm talking now. That's right. Anyway, one of the thoughts that came into my mind is about if I were to hire a mindset coach, right? Help me with my business or relationship, maybe not a therapist, but we'll call them a coach. They're not going to tell me, okay, Alton, we're going to meet once for 30 minutes and then everything's going to be fine. The money's pouring in, your relationship's perfect. How does it work with hypnosis? Is this a one and done thing? Or are you going to book us up for like a year of weekly sessions to really do it? What's that look like?
There are a lot of hypnotists who claim that they can fix anything in a single session. And I think that gives a lot of us a bad name, because hypnosis is not 100% effective for every issue. I mean, nothing really is. I personally recommend all my clients come in for at least 2 to 3 sessions. I typically recommend a program like 3 to 5. I would say, let's take weight loss for an example. When someone comes in and they want to lose weight, I recommend a 4-session program. The first one, we work on whatever main issue it is. Like maybe their big issue is a lack of motivation or food cravings. We tackle that big one. And then in the follow-up 3 sessions, we're picking away at the other 3 so that by the end of the month, they've not only started to lose that weight, but they have made those shifts so that going forward, those habits are already in place. They don't have to work so hard to make it happen. My goal is not to create someone who's coming back to me like every week for a year. That's not my goal. My goal is like, I want to help you fix this fast as possible so that you can get on with your life.
So one more question though, like let's say that whatever, I have 100 pounds to lose and within a month I've lost 10 pounds. Do people still say like, I want to keep coming back? And you're like, you don't need to keep coming back? Or, I mean, do you get that question?
I've had that. Yeah. I had someone who's like, I just really like the experience of hypnosis. And I have people come back for other issues. I'll say like, if you really want to come back, we can work on other things, but like you're already making progress. And that brings up the other thing. If someone's got 100 pounds to lose, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not like an instant fix. Healthy weight loss is like 1 pound, 2 pounds, like 3 pounds a week. And so it's going to take time to shed those pounds. And so the way I say it, it's getting your mindset to be that skinny person. And then your body just has to catch up.
Yeah, totally.
So I've got 2 questions for you. One's pretty easy, which is hypnosis covered by insurance?
Unfortunately, it's usually not. Now, I tend to give my clients like a letter to send to their insurance company to get reimbursed, but it is something that's typically out of pocket. Now, when you compare it to medical procedures, it's relatively inexpensive. Like if someone comes in for a weight loss program and their other option is like a $25,000 bariatric surgery, it's fairly inexpensive, but it is coming out of pocket.
Gotcha. So then my second question is, we're talking about fixing anxiety, and part of anxiety is things will pop up in the future that trigger your issues. Large crowds, talking to a stranger on the phone, getting hugged in Lowe's by a random stranger, of course, things like that. So how do you
stranger?
how do you hypnotize somebody for anxiety? Because when we first started this, you said pick apart something like a memory and then you dump it in the trash. So how does it work going forward?
Yeah. So those 2 things I mentioned earlier, they're not the only tools in a hypnotist's toolbox. The one that I would recommend for that is working with anchors and stimuli. So an anchor is a response that we have to something in our external environment. We build these all the time because our brain is a habit producing machine. It wants to conserve energy and just run the same program. When you get in your car, if you've been driving for a long time, you automatically put on your seatbelt and adjust your mirrors or whatever you have to do. And most of the time you're out the driveway before you even realize you've done anything. And when you get into those habits, when an anchor is so ingrained, the response that comes after can be automatic. And we see the same thing with anxiety. When someone has that anxious response to, let's say it's when people raise their voice. If someone raises their voice, that automatic response triggers and they feel those anxious emotions. What we do in hypnosis, we take that stimulus and remove it from its automatic response. And then we install a different automatic response so that instead of feeling anxious when that person raises their voice, they then automatically feel a sense like, I am in control of the situation and perhaps I could raise my voice too, or I could just be calm and deal with this resourcefully. we're building in new automatic responses for stimuli in the environment that might come up in the future.
So then we probably have an idea. So do you work with people? I mean, like to your example, somebody's yelling at me and I'm going to yell back. And would I be able to come in and be like, hey, look, I kind of lose my cool when this person is yelling at me. This is how I want to respond. Can you help me do that? Or how does that look?
Yeah. Anger management hypnosis. I know a couple hypnotists who specialize in that. And it's the same basic problem or same process. Mm-hmm. You swap out the response to the stimulus so that every time it happens in their environment, they're not triggered by that same automatic response.
So do you as the patient get to choose what's getting installed? So like if Alton has a tendency to hug people in Lowe's and he wants to retrain that automatic, like, okay, I'm not saying you have to, I'm just saying like, could you choose to do something else? Like I'm going to stop and tie my shoes every time that I'm compelled to.
Or wet willies.
Or there you go, right? Like, is this a conversation before you're in a trance state where you choose the direction you're going to go? Like what software you're picking? Okay.
Yes, I realize I left that out when describing like a basic session. So typically before they go into hypnosis, I'm working with a person to define their goals in their own terms. Because if someone comes in for anxiety, what I think they might mean is they have heart racing anxiety every single time, like they're around another person. And they might say that they just get a little stressed when they're at work or something. And so we're defining it in their own language, because by doing that, your unconscious mind has already kind of agreed with it. It recognizes the language. And so when I deliver it in your exact words, it's already like, hey, I recognize that. And also by giving the person that ability to craft their own suggestions, it gives them autonomy. We all want to be autonomous in our life. And we felt it before. If someone tells you what to do, there's that little part of you that rises up like, no, I'm going to do something else.
That's a big part in me.
I was going to say.
You have that in hypnosis as well. And so by giving them some autonomy and allowing them to choose their own suggestion, you're one, getting more accurate results for the problem they came in for that they actually want to fix. But two, you're honoring that part of their mind and you're going to see better results in the long run.
Okay. I have one more question and then I'm going to shut up. Tell me, Doug, what is the most like outlandish thing someone has asked you to do? Like, I want to grow more arm hair, or like, what's the craziest thing you've done?
I had a bodybuilder come in and they were like, I want to make my traps huge.
Yes.
And like everything else on this guy was huge, as you would expect. And his traps were just kind of like, his neck looked very skinny. And he's like, I just look like a fool. And so he came in, like we did the hypnosis, and he came in like a month later for something else. And like, I didn't even recognize him. Like the traps were they were popping. Like, I don't know. He just had some mental block that we had to deal with.
Does that, I'm not even going to go there.
I am kind of curious if Alton went to you.
Record scratch right there.
Like, yeah. Okay. But if like Alton or somebody like him needed to go and like gain weight, is there a way for him to on his own later shut it off?
Yes.
Well, it's gone too far.
A taser.
I'm too big. I'm just like Arnold.
I'm just curious, like some of these where it's like a short-term goal, like you don't necessarily want to, even with the weight loss, like you don't want to be losing forever. You want to lose to a point. Is that something that they go
John
back?
Fell apart. If you're listening, John is in stitches.
What? This is a real question. I'm not being.
I'm all in. No, I'm all in. I don't want to get too
I'm just
big.
Curious. Like, do you need to go back
too big
to the hypnotist to get them to yank that part? Or is it something that like once you've got the tools in your toolbox, you can choose when to use them?
Usually in that case, a hypnotist would build in that suggestion. Like I have people who are like, my metabolism is really slow. Can you help me with that? And like, we can improve that, but I don't know where your perfect metabolism is, or I don't know what weight is your perfect weight. And so we build in that suggestion. When you get to that healthy weight or metabolism, or however bulky you want to be with your muscles, your body's going to turn this off. And if you ever drop below that, it can turn it off again. It's like giving the reins back to the person's mind to say like, this is now your tool. Like you've got this, keep this person safe.
Yeah. It's kind of like a thermostat, right? Like you're helping to readjust the thermostat. Okay. I said one more, but I mean it now. Hard question for you. is this like mostly a placebo, and does it matter if it is? What are your thoughts there?
I don't think it's a placebo. When I first started, I thought that it was like a huge part of it, but now that I've studied the actual science behind it, I'm quite certain that it's not placebo. And when you look at the brainwave patterns and you see just how, like, to give you a brief example of how many different organizations have approved this as a treatment modality, like the American Psychological Association, both the British and American Medical Association, even the National Cancer Institute in America has recommended hypnosis as a viable treatment, not just a placebo, for helping people to create amazing changes, whether it's around anxiety relief or weight loss or cancer side effects, whatever it may be.
Okay, option C though. You did say that you as a patient, you are safe from having your mind messed with because you have to be at that threshold where you are ready to change.
Yes.
So if I come to you and I don't believe it, I think that this is snake oil, will it still work for me? If you take me to a trance state and I'm like, yep, pretty sure that the only people this works for are the people that they think it's going to work for them, will it still work on me?
Yes and no. I would say that you're not going to get the same results as someone who's like, yeah, either I'm just going to try it or is at least open to it. If someone is actively resisting it, that's going to work against them. But I have found that the people who are really skeptical, who say, you can never hypnotize me because my brain's too strong or something like that, those are the people who go into hypnosis best. Because part, while they're saying, you can never hypnotize me, part of them is saying, yeah, but what if you could? And so I would say there's both sides of that. You could help them with a little bit of change, but unless they're really committed to that change, you're not going to get the full result of that change.
So this is not something that you would be licensed to do. You're not a doctor. Is it? You said it was a certificate you have to get. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I think that sums it up for all the questions we have. For those that might be skeptical of it, is there anything else you'd like to add as, say, proof? Like you've got a video or something they can reference.
Make John squawk. Come
no,
on,
don't make me squawk. I don't want to try.
I would say on my website, I've got quite a few medical studies about the actual effectiveness of hypnosis. If someone wants to experience hypnosis, I've got a resource for that. But just my final closing thoughts on hypnosis. Hypnosis has been around since the ancient Greeks. I mean, that's where the name comes from the god of sleep, Hypnos. And we've been using it in a helpful setting rather than just a stage show setting since Victorian England. And the fact that this has been around for so long tells us that it works for at least some of the people some of the time. The reason we no longer do bloodletting is because we realize that doesn't really work. And the reason that we still do things like dentistry and general practice hospital work is that we realize these things help. They don't solve everything. You're not going to go to a dentist to solve your cancer, but these tools can be used to help certain issues for certain people at certain times.
So it sounds like we're going to have you back on the show at some point so you can do it to one of the three of us. Can you actually do that with everybody else just kind of watching without affecting the rest of us?
That's a good question.
Absolutely.
We don't want to squawk, just John.
So I think we're going to have to revisit this. I think we're going to have to make somebody.
I need to get some
hypnotized.
big traps. I want some big traps.
I would say about that, I'm absolutely open to it. I would temper your expectations. Like when someone tries to do a hypnosis presentation for like 5 people and they're like, make him bark like a dog. And it's like, it's not the same vibe as a stage show. And so if you're looking for something like you want to be less anxious or maybe drink less coffee or something simple like that, and then maybe you want to present your findings afterwards, like a month down the road. Yeah, I'd totally be down for that.
Gotcha. Yeah, let's talk about that further because it's one of those things. Some people aren't believers until they see it or feel it. So I don't know. We'll see how that works out.
Yeah, and I think too, and I didn't ask these questions and I'm not going to, but I'm curious, like the connections between meditation and hypnosis and your journey there, because I've read a lot about the, theta brain state and read a bunch of habit books, trying to grow and stuff. So it's pretty interesting. I thought it was good presentation, Doug.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right. So tell us before you go how people can get a hold of you or stay in touch with your practice.
Yeah. My main website is anywherehypnosis.com. That's where you can find everything. Probably my most active social is Instagram, and that's at Making Your Meeting. And the one thing that I mentioned, that free hypnosis resource, I used to give out free hypnosis on Instagram, but now I've got it in one actual professional audio I give away on my website. It's called the Hypnotic Test Drive. And it just builds some confidence, some self-esteem, and it shows people what a deep trance is really like. And that link is anywherehypnosis.com/test drive.
Absolutely.
So you're telling me that I can go onto your website and hypnotize myself and see if I want to call you afterwards.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're totally going to video this, though. This is going to be
we're going to play with that.
I'm interested in that. How long is it?
I think the test drive's about 35 minutes.
Oh, man, I'm all in on that. You said Making Your Meeting is your Instagram?
Making Your Meeting. I called it that from the Making Meeting podcast. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Cool. So for the listeners out there, make sure you check the links below in whatever app or resource you're listening to us or watching us. So you can click on that and check him out. And Doug, thanks for joining the show. Thanks for teaching us something today. And let's stay in touch and appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Great talking to you.
You're awesome, Doug. Thanks.
Absolutely.
All right. So I was skeptical to begin with. Let me start with that. I've always thought it's like those Ouija boards, right? Somebody's going to be moving it around. I'll never believe any of that crap unless no one's touching it and it moves on its own. It's the only way I'm ever going to believe that crap. So I struggle with what he says. And I really don't know that I can still believe it. Like I want to test it out further to see what can really come of it.
What's unbelievable about it? Like what are you hung up on? Or stuck? Or...
I just, how are you going to solve my anxiety by supposedly putting me in some hypnosis? And are you going to tell me to just close my eyes and repeat after you, or what?
Sounds like John needs to do the test off the website.
I'm scared to do the test because I might screw something up big time. Be like, John, it's time to do the show. Where are you?
Yeah.
Come back, John.
He's stuck in hypnosis.
Come on, Doug said that was impossible. You have to go to the bathroom eventually.
But I think we should absolutely follow up on this. I think somebody should take the leap. Not me.
I'm totally doing it. I wonder.
You're doing it right now, aren't you? You're not waiting until the show's over.
I'm on the page.
Are you at 1.75 times the speed there?
Yeah. Hypnotize me faster. And I just want to thank whoever said I talk slow in the comments. I appreciate it.
It's messing with his head now.
Yeah.
No, I was fully aware. I'm just glad other people are recognizing the greatness.
Yeah. So I guess there's not much for me to discuss on here. Y'all ready to hit the deciding factor?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Let's do this.
Now it's time for our deciding factor.
All right. Question of the day, guys. Can hypnotism be the cure for anxiety? He talks some about it. Here's the big problem I have. I asked him the question of, is this covered by insurance? No. I asked him the question of, is he a doctor? He's not. You don't have to have a license for this. You get a certificate for it. That throws red flags up for me. Now, could this work? Maybe. I would like to still look into this. However, I have not been convinced that this is legit, that it will actually help with anxiety or even some of the other things he had mentioned. And so, yeah, I'm going to have to say I'm out. Like there's, until you show me good proof, I'm not going to be in. So once Alton starts gaining muscle and stop drinking coffee, then we'll go in.
I think that's really kind of funny though, that if he had letters after his name, or like if he was more certified. I mean, like, I don't know. I just kept thinking we're living in a world right now where it's like the expert hath said, and we're all wearing masks. I mean, it's just not congruous to me.
That is true. Good point.
Yeah. The thing that got me though, I think a lot of what he said, there were probably two things that I got stuck on personally. Does it work? I think it depends on how you define work. If we're talking anxiety, which seems very relevant, I think that there is a moral component to anxiety. And so I don't think that this, in a way, it sounds like a behavioral change, right? Like he gave the example of, I hear someone raise their voice and I have an instinctive, like, anxious reaction. Although you can retrain your reactions, and I think that's definitely true, right? Like we do that with ourselves all the time with mindset. We do it with our kids all the time. You can retrain the reaction, but I think that anxiety is bigger than just your neurological reaction. I think it's bigger than just, does my heart rate go up? So I would say that if you're going to do hypnosis, I think you have to do it realistically, understanding that this is not going to fundamentally change you as a person. Turns out if you are if you've got issues with your anger, you're still going to have issues with your anger. They're going to look different because there's a moral component to this that I don't buy that hypnosis can deal with. The second thing that probably personally would stop me from trying it is, even though there is you have a threshold, you have conscious awareness while this is happening. That's a lot of control to put in the hands of another person. And I think that generally speaking, I think that's true of psychiatry. I think that's true of anything that you are, I think it's true of getting a bikini wax. Like anything that you're going to put yourself in a very vulnerable position with another person, I think you need to know that it could get abused, that you could get, that you could come out worse than you came in. I know that there's protections built into it, the way he described it. But he also gave us examples of people that have managed to get around that. So
it doesn't even sound like HIPAA's involved in it.
Yeah.
Who?
HIPAA.
Yeah, HIPAA.
As opposed to hypna, totally different. Yeah. So for me, I think I would personally not be inclined for the same reason that I don't do essential oils or psychiatry. It's too much buy-in.
This is my thoughts on it. We have an entire show called The Deciding Factor. We listen to this show because we want to arm ourselves with perhaps more data and logic and other perspectives so that we can be prepared to make good decisions and know how to look at something the way we want to look at things, right? Like I imagine people listening, if you're listening to this, when we get done with the show, you probably have a stronger opinion one way or the other, right? Because we're offering data and some logic and hopefully some comedic relief. And so you're kind of changing your brain, right? You're changing how you look at something or not, but you're like, that guy's psycho. I'm not doing that. And this is why.
Referring to you.
Perhaps. Or maybe they just go and buy a motorcycle, because I've had them hypnotized for several months. But I think that there are a lot of ways that we can work through these things if you want to, right? And so I feel some people may have tried some things to, like, I'm really worried about the coronavirus. How can I fix that? Well, I'm going to put on a mask, right? That's like one way to address the anxiety around it. Now, maybe there's other underlying things and that does help or it doesn't help. So I think that if you're on the same page of the deciding factor, which is you can reshape your ideas and opinions, I think that if you got into more of your subconscious, it seems like it would only be easier to do that. So if you can identify an area that you're trying to improve, like over the last year, I put on more muscle because I finally decided that and like looked into it. Well, maybe this guy could help me do it faster. So I think that there's a huge capacity here to have improvements. And then the other thing that I was going to say is I've read this book called The Habit Loop, and it talks about where all of your habits are stored. And so when he starts talking about, you put your car in drive, you check your mirrors, and you're just this idea of autopilot, it's very true because all of your habits are stored in like the very, very base of your brain, like just above your subconscious, right? So it's like the part of your brain that's making your heart beat is like way down deep, and then just right above that is where all your habits are stored. So if you want to change a habit, you've got to get down into that to break those habit loops. And so when he starts talking about meditation and how hypnosis is kind of a guided meditation to get you down into that part of your brain to make adjustments, I think that there's a lot of science that backs that. And because they've studied people that are missing their brains, like the whole top half, and they still have all these habits. They can still walk around, they can still feed themselves, they can still do all of these things. They just can't remember past 30 seconds ago.
So are you fully in? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm in because I've gone through these little, even like yoga, or like these relaxation times where you're just totally relaxed and they're kind of guiding you through things to, even if it's just concentrating on relaxing your muscles and things like that. And I feel like they've totally helped me. That's just why I asked, is this just a placebo? But I think that the more time that goes on and the more people we meet, I'm finding these people who are really good at certain things that I have no idea about and I'm kind of skeptical about. And then when I hang out with them a little bit more, they open some totally new worlds to me. So I'm all in on the idea that it could totally work. And I'm not really skeptical at all.
Wow. Well, you heard it first here. Make sure you stay tuned because we are going to have to do some experimenting ourselves. So do us a favor. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram.
Click.
Make sure you comment, because if you beat us to it, we'd like to know your experience. And then, of course, we will end up sharing our own experience and seeing what we can do to Alton in this
turn
process.
on to YouTube. You can see my massive traps here in like 3 days.
Boom.
New wardrobe. I'm going to send Doug a bill.
All right, guys. It was a good show. I think I learned some stuff. Like I said, we're going to research and find out more. Hopefully you are still interested and want to do some research of your own, because this is a show about you making up your own decision, just like we have. All right, guys.
And
we
haven't done a meditation show yet, have we?
No.
If you're still listening, I would love to hear if you meditate or not. I think we should do a meditation show. That's my thought.
Really quiet show.
All right, guys. Y'all are getting crazy. We'll see y'all next time. Say bye.
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 This has been another episode of The Deciding Factor, giving you food for thought on real life issues. Be sure to click, like, and subscribe to this podcast, as well as all your big social media outlets, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Don't forget to check out our website at thedecidingfactorpodcast.com and give us comments and feedback. Until next time, stay safe and remember to keep an open mind.